You can put a stop to that and be a part of the solution today. Simply call 1-800-GET-GOOD and be sure to use your mom's credit card and include those 3 digits on the back. Hello summoners and welcome to another Pro Guides video. I am former LCS commentator Zyrene, and today we'll be discussing 10 settings to set yourself up for victory. Becoming a better League player isn't about huge sudden leaps and bounds, it's about the accumulation of all the little things you learn to do better than your enemy. Settings are the littlest things of all, so little in fact that they're often overlooked, but they're literal and figurative game changers. Really quick though, before we jump into it, today's question of the day is, what setting has made the biggest difference for your play? For me, using the F keys to check up on my laners really upped my jungle game and helped me peak at Masters. Let us all know your answers in the comments below, and also, before we get started, are you always getting ganked? Find yourself moving towards that 0 and 10 power spike, but you aren't even playing Yasuo? Don't worry, we've got you covered. Pro Guides is the #1 proven way to quickly level up your League of Legends skills, whether you're looking for tier lists, champion guides, coaching, or courses from your favorite pro players. Pro Guides is where you'll find them. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and start improving right now. Now, with that being said, let's jump right into the video. The first and arguably most important setting I ever tell anyone to configure is Quick Cast. Quick Cast makes it so that when you're using your abilities, you can just instantly cast them instead of having to press your ability button to aim it, then click to cast it. League of Legends tends to have long game times, but the fights are fast-paced and Quick Cast shaves vital milliseconds off of your input times. Think of each skirmish as a Wild West shootout, and you need to have the fastest spells this side of the river. This metaphor sounds dramatic, but it holds especially true for junglers, who frequently have to 50-50 their smites over objectives that can win or lose the game. I legitimately hear the Clint Eastwood whistle every time I'm about to contest a smite, and I can't even begin to tell you how important those tiny fractions of a second are that get saved by Quick Cast. The only exception to this is that some abilities function better as normal casts, and that's most vector casts. Things like Rumble Ultimate, Talia W, and Victor E, because either the aim or timing of them is too crucial to risk messing up, but also it comes down to the ease of flexibility. If I want to adjust where the origin point of my Rumble R is with Quick Cast enabled, I have to right click, release R, and then press and hold R again to establish my new origin point. But if I have normal cast enabled and I want to change the origin point of my Rumble R, I press R in the new location, and that's it. So adjusting my origin point on the fly is much faster with normal cast on vector abilities than if I were to quick cast them. So map those regular abilities to normal cast and learn to quick cast everything else. Cast fast or you'll end up as grass. The next most important setting for new players in particular is to unlock your camera. By default, it's bound to the Y key, and for some reason, I see a lot of new players living and dying by their locked camera. It's gonna feel weird at first, but get used to unlocking your camera and panning it around manually so you can see more of the map. I coached a jungler who played with locked cam, and every time he went to gank, he had absolutely no idea how healthy the enemy was that he was ganking, because he couldn't move his camera to check. Every gank was a gamble, and I'm pretty sure he just said a few prayers to whatever cruel god of fate he worshipped every time he strolled into a lane. Playing with locked cam is the League equivalent of walking around while looking through toilet paper tube binoculars. You can't afford to limit your knowledge like that, so bite the bullet and get accustomed to moving your camera. The time you really do want to lock your camera is sometimes during team fights. That way you can focus on your micro instead of having to attack, move the camera, run away, move camera again, etc. If you're just starting to unlock your camera, you can use holding spacebar as a set of training wheels, but try to get used to moving your camera around to check up on other players. Just a little bit every game helps build up that habit. Attack move is a binding that's mostly known for its use by ADCs, but it's really important for everyone to make a habit out of. Rather than just right-clicking and moving, attack move allows you to move as you normally would, but attack anything that you encounter on the way. There are 2 primary applications of attack move. Number 1, you don't have to be as precise with your auto attack micro when you're kiting or pursuing an opponent. because your champion will just attack even if you misclick. Number 2, if you attack move into a bush that you know a low health enemy has gone into, like the coward he is afraid of his destiny, your champion will automatically attack them as soon as you see them, which eliminates the microseconds they would otherwise have to get away before you manually click them to death. An important augmentation to attack move though, and it's up to personal preference, is to check the box in your settings for attack move on cursor instead of letting it function normally. The difference being that regular attack move will just attack whatever's closest to your champion, but attack move on cursor will target whatever was closest to where you clicked. This saves you from doing something really embarrassing, like being a professional ADC named something like double hoist or twice lift, revered by many and then accidentally autoing a ward instead of a champion in the middle of an important team fight because the ward was the closest thing to him. And we wouldn't want that, now would we? Setting number 3 is to learn to use your ability level up bindings. A lot of new players will just click on their abilities to level them up, but that's a sizable no-no. You don't want to have to move your mouse away from the combat zone for any reason. And if you're in the middle of a fight, you're forcing yourself to either not learn an ability that could potentially change the outcome, or you're having to take your mouse away from the fight and reduce your effectiveness. The default mapping for this is control plus whatever ability you want to level. I use the inside of my left palm to hold down control while I do that, but a lot of people remap this to alt so that they can just use their thumb to press the alt key and then press whatever ability. This is another instance of precious microseconds that can make a big difference, especially at power spikes like a level 2 power spike in bottom lane or hitting level 6. Our final setting that has any direct combat implication is configuring your target champion's only click. As the name of the setting indicates, it makes it so your auto attack can only target champions. This is an important one to have set up because oftentimes in laning phase, you get into fights in the middle of minions, and trust me when I tell you, there's very little that's more embarrassing than missing out on a kill because you accidentally clicked a minion instead of the 10 HP Lux that's been spamming laugh all game. There's also an option to make your target champion's only button a toggle, and I highly recommend that because usually the situations where you need it last a few seconds. So it's easier to do that, toggle it on, instead of hold it, click it when you want to attack with it. I bind this key to tilde, the key that's right to the left of your 1 key. And you absolutely want to use this when your team is initiating a turret dive. You will never fail to kill someone during a dive because you accidentally attacked the tower, ever again. And even if they hide behind the turret, you'll be able to click on them every single time through the turret if you have that toggle on. On to the more interface-based settings. Max out your minimap. And I'm afraid if you've misunderstood me, so I'll clarify. Don't just go make your map a little bit bigger, max that bad boy out. I'm talking big enough that even Christopher Columbus couldn't screw that up. Oh, who needs a map? Shut up, Ezreal. You ulted a Voidling to save Kai'Sa in the last cinematic, and you don't even have a tier at level 6. What do you know? But map awareness is one of the most important fundamental skills to learn in League of Legends. And the bigger your map is, the easier it is to spot things in your peripheral vision. You should be looking at your map every 3 seconds anyway, but it'll help you notice things in between. Setting number 7 is to minimize your HUD in every way you can, because you need to see as much of your screen as possible. This is going to sound like contrary advice after I just told you to max out your map, but let me explain. League of Legends heavily rewards vision, so the more space on your screen you can free up, the better off you are. The only reason we make an exception for the map is because it contributes to your macro vision. Your immediate vision, though, is much more important than anything your HUD has to offer. You have to hover your abilities anyway to see what they do, so having them bigger doesn't help. Just save yourself some space on your screen and minimize it. Same with chat. It's hard to get tilted by your glorified AI solo queue teammates when their words are as small as their carry potential. Also, as long as I've played League, there's this persistent bug where some of the crankier AI feeding in my ranked games say hurtful things to me, and I'm not sure if their existence is a bug or a feature at this point, but sometimes I'll just cut out the middleman and yeet the chat straight off the screen until they tucker themselves out. Honestly, they're modern marvels. Optimal setting number 8 is to enable your HUD to display monocosts. Knowing how much mana you need for an ability without having to hover over it can save you vital time, just like how you should be using the control key to level up your abilities. There's not much to explain here, but use these mana costs to calculate whether or not you have enough mana to pull off a combo, or know how close you are to being able to use an ability. Managing your mana is an essential part of the game, particularly in the laning phase, when abilities can win and lose trades for you. Besides, if you fail to keep track of your mana, you could find yourself with no mana and in a freaky situation. That's a pun. Setting number 9 is to get a handle on your camera bindings. Not just locking and unlocking like we discussed before, but go into your settings and configure whatever buttons you'd like for your allied cameras. The default setting for this is your F1 through F5 keys. As we've discussed many times before, knowing what's happening on the map is vital to your success as a League player. You can reach Diamond just by minimizing your mistakes alone, and seeing what's going on with your allies is a key part of that. Make a habit out of cycling your camera through their lanes to check on them when you can afford to. See how their wave is set up, determine if they're pushing or getting pushed into, look at their resources, then make decisions based on that. If you just watched your top laner get shoved in by their full health enemy and you can't see the other laner, they're either warding or roaming for a gank. So now you can react accordingly. Make it a habit to take in as much information as you can make sense of. The more you practice this, the more you'll be able to size up situations and make the right calls to win the game. Some people don't like reaching their fingers up that far to the F keys and rebind them to 1 through 5, and then they move their active items to ZXCV. Or you can swap those two settings around and just use ZXCV for your teammates. I have big hands, so I still use the F keys, but I actually only use F1 through 4. F1 is normally used to center the camera on yourself, and I can already do that with the spacebar. So I just remove the redundancy and shift all of the hotkeys one button to the left. Setting number 10 is the enemy has vision ping, which is the ultimate snitching tool. And we here at Pro Guides encourage you to tattle your heart out. Jungler, Leona put a ward in the tri-bush again. Come down river to beat her up. And now that your jungler can choose a path that won't reveal them, they can come down and cyberbully your enemy for you. Telling your team about vision prevents a lot of wasted time for everyone, especially when you can just ping it instead of typing out warded and then ping the spot that's warded anyway. Like, what kind of sense does that make? Just do it. Your team will love you at least as much as League players are capable of expressing appreciation. Anyway, I personally bind this to the C key because you use it to ping where the enemy can see you. All of these settings, when put together, will really streamline your gameplay. Like I said, it'll be awkward to adjust it first, but you have to make yourself commit to playing with them. You'll save so much time through these optimizations, and they encourage other habits that are even more noticeable than the settings themselves. If you end up struggling with any of the bindings, keep moving it around until you find something that feels natural to you. It will take about a week or two to fully adjust to your new bindings, but believe me, it is worth it. This is definitely a one step backwards to take 2 steps forward type deal, so try not to overwhelm yourself. And if you have to, implement only 1 or 2 of the things you heard here today. And once you've done that, come back and implement 2 more to eventually incorporate all of them. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Once again, make sure to check out ProGuides.com to take your game to the next level. We have so much useful content that we want you guys to check out, and also make sure to stay tuned to our YouTube channel. Until next time, good luck on the Rift, Summoners.